Yes. We're gonna use also.
All right.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes. Okay, so it's all set. This is how we are seeing your screen.
Yeah, I know.
Which is the same?
Yeah, I know.
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. Okay, so
This is not working, but it's fine, I think.
okay. So maybe let me. I can call people.
Oh, I see. It's not on.
It's not on.
Now it's on. All right, I turned it on, but it's not on. Hey, can you guys hear me on the Hangout? So yeah, I turned it on, but I don't see any light.
The thing was this.
Oh, okay. Hey, Jacob, you want to say
All
hi?
right.
Go on, Backbone.
Yes.
All right.
Hello, guys. Let's get started. Hello, hello. That didn't work.
All right.
So try again. Hey, guys. Let's have it. Okay, so first of all, thanks for coming. It's the second time we are doing this meetup this year, and it's very good. Thanks for coming again. It's very good. Every time we do, we see more people around, which is great. We got offers for like venues and speakers, and that has been great. So if you ever want to speak about something, or you have a venue to offer us to do our meetup next time, just talk to me, and then we can take from there. Okay? And just one quick announcement. So most likely our next meetup is going to be happening at Google Office. I will keep you posted on. And we also have 2 more venues lining up, right? And we'll take from there, okay? So today, Duran's going to talk about Vagrant with Node and Backbone, and Chengyin is going to talk about React, coming from Backbone to React. All right, so with you guys, Duran, thanks very much.
Thank you, guys. So I'm going to talk with you about some Backbone, Node.js, Happy, Vagrant, Required.js. I'll try to keep it very short for 20 minutes, so bear with me. So you start a new job, and then you have to set up your environment. And it's basically look like this. You get this huge list, and then you need CouchDB, Redis, Node.js. different versions, Nginx, and there's a lot of place for errors from between your Mac to production. And that's where I kind of realized, oh, there must be another way. And then basically you can use a Vagrant. And Vagrant, it's basically a VM that looks the same as your production, or it's the same as your production environment. And it's very easy to set up. All you need to do, you have a URL for your box. You can sync your folder from your local Mac to the VM. If you have a private network, you can set the IP address to any IP address you want, and then basically just forward ports. So in this case, I have a Vagrant that runs an API and an Nginx server, and there is a shell here. If you see the virtual machine provision, it's running a shell, which is start.sh. And that's basically an example. A lot of time it will be more complicated than just starting this API and your grunt server, but that's what we did for just starting. Simple. So we have a Node API. I wasn't sure if I'm going to have a Wi-Fi, so I kind of did it without VPN or stuff. So I moved from Apple to this cool company called OpenTable. Rehiring. So I just built this simple API that we can get information about the restaurant, and if you want just like a single page view for Backbone, it will be a restaurant in ID. And before React was existing, like before I thought about React, I was like, okay, I want to break Backbone into components. I didn't like the standard MVC. Just look too complicated sometimes, and sometimes you have you just want to break everything into, like, let's say we have 5 different menus, and you just break into like 5 different components to our menus, and then your app looks like a component inside restaurant. We have view, we have template, we have model.js collection, and that's kind of the way I structure my app. And this is just a screenshot. And then I use require.js, and this is a great example in the website, which is like kind of simple. You see, there is an array here, and there is a function, and it's very simple. But then there is this case when you kind of have like 5 different libraries, or sometimes even 20 different models that you want to load, and I'm kind of lost when I see all of that. So then I thought, wait, I can define it and use require, export, and modules, and then use kind of Node way of just module, and then just export anything. So in this case, I'm exporting my setting file. I think it's like the setting.js one. Here I just said one of the components, which is the restaurant view. So I have a collection for the restaurant, and then I have 2 different views, which is a single view and more than one, basically like all the restaurant, just fetch like 30 restaurants, and then there is the model. And then where it's kind of, this is like the single view. So you see I did var app, require app, underscore, require underscore, and then I don't have this require.js thing on my screen. It's working great. I just don't understand why require.js doesn't use this as an example in the website. So it's help you kind of really nicely build your code running on your computer. This is the way I'm doing my router. So, and that's where it's kind of look like React, because I have a menu and submenu and footer and restaurant, and those are components. So then when you go to one of the view, you basically create an instance of the menu, and then you can decide, oh, here's a submenu view, just I want you to basically put this submenu instance inside the submenu, and the footer, I want you to put it in the view, and that's, I just broke it into components, and I can reuse them in different views. So that's what it is. So that's where basically how the app look like. That's when we have the multiple page of restaurants. This is basically when you press on a restaurant, you get this like foundation model, and then this is a single page view, which is using the get API restaurant ID. So just connecting the dots. So we have the Vagrant, which is just through Vagrant app, and then I have an API running and a web server running, which look the same as production. So you're not going to have any problem. You like just deploy it tomorrow to production. It's not going to be, oh, your Node version is different, or whatever version you're going to have. Like we had version of Couchbase. So everyone had Couchbase on their computer, and then when you deploy it, we had some issue with Couchbase. So you're not going to have it because you just deploy the same Vagrant that everyone has on their box. And that's the Backbone. Yeah, one thing to take from this stuff, just, use GitHub, use open source. There's tons of examples. I'm sure you can find something. Yes, OpenTable is hiring, guys. Thank you. Yeah, we have time for demo.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So, all right. So this is how simple it is. Oh yeah. Cool. Thank you. So I'm gonna just use Vagrant up, and I'm running my virtual box. All right. Can you see this? Okay. Okay. So. See here. Can you hold it? Yeah, I can just hold it. It's fine. So basically my Vagrant is up. See if it's working. So port 8000. That's the web. Here's the API. Not. Oh wait, I know it's a problem. So we start using Docker, and I think that we're using the same port. Network port forwarding 3000. Yes. So I hate that way. All right. Let's see if this is, no, it's not. So, I'm going to press restaurants. You're not going to get anything because the API is not running. Okay. So we'll do Vagrant SSH. It's super simple, trust me, yeah. Yeah, it's just the demo, so yeah. I think it's running. I think it's what should run on computer. Okay. So you just destroy it and you just rebuild it. And you don't need to realize what's happening. Oh, come on. All right. So that's the beauty of Vagrant. You have the Vagrant box, and you just destroy it and rebuild it. And whatever happened, because I'm kind of using Docker right now, and I think I'm keep doing like port forwarding. So then if I need to restart my VMs and stuff, so sometimes it's just gonna have some issue with the port forwarding stuff. But that's the beauty of it. Like we're actually switching to Docker now, which seems a little bit even faster because everything is inside a container. So instead of one big VM, you just have a container. So it's like a one big VM, but then you have the MySQL inside a container, Node.js, your web. Let's see if it's working now. Oh. It's not the same. Okay. It's getting the same error. All right. So I see now I'm just basically do the npm install, part for the API, part of it for the web. Okay, now it's working. Let's see. Okay, perfect. This is working. So this is the restaurant. You press on the restaurant. It's still using the same view. Doesn't do an extra call here. But when I'm going to press on the restaurant page, it's basically I'm going to fetch the single view. So go to restaurant page, and then you see restaurant ID 9. That's how it looks basically. Yeah, and here I kind of left the URL where you can see the components. So I'm going to go to Sublime. You can see it here. So we have the API, we have the web. I think. Oh yeah. So this is up.js. This is the way I look. So I'm using require.js. This is the way I'm just using require.js. It seems so much simpler than having the function and the array before, and then you have a function with like 20 different params. And this is how I just basically broke it into components. So in this case, the components. So that's it. So yeah, so I have like two menus here, which is kind of annoying to have two menus. But when you break it into components, you don't need to repeat yourself like in each of the view. So if we go to one of the submenus, so this is how it's look. We have a view, we have the template, we have the index.js, which the index.js basically exporting all the file inside the collection and the view. Collection in this case probably will be empty because there is nothing really to go and take anything from here. This is the template of, you can see here, that all I did here is, yeah, we're getting an item name here. I think it's a view. Yeah, you see you can edit this file. So basically, that's how you kind of break it into components. So it's not React, but it's a way of like, you know, I don't have time to like for my developer to learn a whole new framework, or I just want to break things that on my existing backbone before I'm switching to a whole entire framework. So that's what we do. Yep. Cool. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
No,
all right.
You're fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Tom.
All right, my pleasure, guys.
Great timing. All right, thanks very much, Ron. It was a very interesting talk. So, hope you guys can learn. Yes, I can see there. So I'm recording from there too.
Okay.
Okay. So guys, with you, Chengyin. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So my talk is gonna be about from Backbone. It is something that we have done or have been doing at Place, and we just want to share our experience with more Backbone developers and potentially convert to. My name is Chengyin, and that's my Twitter handle. If you have questions, you can tweet at me. First off, welcome to Place. This is our new office. We just moved in, so a lot of things are still, getting in shape. This is the first meetup we host, so thank you a lot for coming. At Place, we're trying to build a platform for online communities, and those communities, unlike Facebook groups, we want them to be really flexible, and we try to give people a lot of customization tools and powerful tools to organize their communities. We thank Tiago, Sydney, and Summer as the organizer of the meetup. Without this would not be an event, so thank you a lot. All right, so we're talking about React. I'm wearing React shirt. I went to ReactConf. Of course, I'm drinking the. If you have actually used React in your projects, all right, handful. Okay, all right, that's great because there's actually a lot of resources on the internet about React, why it is good, how it was designed, and how people are using it. And I don't really want to repeat those content. I'd like to share with you our own experience migrating from Backbone to React. And my talk is going to be 3 parts. First is how is React helping us, and then I'll tell you how did we incrementally migrate to React, and in the end we'll share some our thoughts on harder problems regarding using React. So let's begin with the simple question: how is React helping us? This was our stack before we migrate. We have a really vanilla backbone structure, so we're using everything backbone. Backbone model and collection backbone view with underscore templates, and for the router or controller, we use backbone router and some customized solutions to because we have a fairly large application, so we have sub-router concept in our system. And we're not using anything beyond this. Well, we're using some mixing, some plugins, but not a whole lot, and we're not using Marriott, which kind of generated more problems for us, but also made it easy for us to migrate. So this is an example of our application. So what you're seeing is a profile of a community owner, which in this case is me. So we want to make the whole application really flexible and powerful. So we're giving them this tool to customize their profile. They can choose different layout. Which are like places you can put widgets, and you can also put different widgets in them. And each widget will have different configurations. For example, this is a Twitter widget in which you can say, show tweets from Chengyin, show tweets from Place, whatever that username is, right? So this whole thing is really complicated because we have 4 different layouts and we have 16 different widgets, and we were on a really tight timeline as a startup. After this, and the whole team was actually really burned out, and we feel like good as a hard build, and our stack is not really helping us. We took a look at our stack and find some pain points, major pain points. First is rendering performance. Our site is not necessarily fast. I think if you go outside, you'll feel it, and I'm ashamed of it. Memory management is really hard. It's really hard to find where does the leak happen, and our site is actually really heavy because of that. We have to do a lot of DOM manipulations. Think about that example I just showed you, switching different layouts, adding different widgets, dragging the widget to different places, changing widget from widget A to widget B. All those things involve a lot of DOM manipulation, and as we add more features, there's more and more of those, and we lost track of it, and it's really hard to understand them. Of course, readability of the code just decreases, and for some views we have, I'm the only one who's gonna touch it ever because no one else is gonna understand what's going on in that code, and a lot of bugs have to wait for me to free up my time to be resolved, so that's a big problem. We also have a heavy testing infrastructure because we need the DOM to be able to do the testing, right? Like we need to run Selenium, we need to run headless WebKit. We can't just run the code in Node in a simple JavaScript engine. And because of our vanilla stack, our template really does not help us to reuse any views. We have to manually do a lot of work. I'll get into more of this. And after looking at all those pain points, we find out a lot of them are related to DOM, right? DOM is something that we all know. Rendering performance, that's definitely related to DOM. DOM manipulation, it's in the name. Readability, maintainability, the more DOM actions you have, DOM manipulations you have to do, the harder it is to read and maintain the code. And of course, you need the heavy infrastructure because you need the DOM. And DOM is this thing that we deal with every day, and sometimes we don't realize how far we go to fight with it. Taking this example, and let's just track a really simple user interaction and see how many things we have to do. So let's start with a simple layout. Well, the background does not reflect the state of the user interaction. You have to use your imagination. So start with layout A. Between users, add the Twitter widget, change the Twitter settings, switch layout to layout 1, change the color for it. Right. So now at the end of it, it's really hard for me to imagine how does the whole thing look like at this point. Well, the background really tells you how it look like, but just by imagination. It was really hard. Moreover, look at those arrows or transitions between different states, and we have to manually do it. Like how many times we have to say, pick out that widget element from the DOM, hide it or destroy it, and then initialize a new view and put into that DOM container so that you can switch between the state. And at each one of those points, how does that view actually look like? It's also unclear. So this complexity, even though we're sort of used to it as front-end engineers, but it's always there, or it was there. What if we don't have to? And what we care about is how the view look like at each one of those points. Then the whole UI building will be really simple. You know, at each one of point, you just see what happened there. You don't care about the transition. Removing a view from the DOM itself, it becomes stateless. And we have been doing this before. Think about before JavaScript single-page app. Think about like the old PHP apps. When you click a button, what happened? The server re-renders everything, right? Like you don't care. The server does not care how the user got it. The server will take the information and just send the new version out. And at one single point, you only care about one single dot. And at this dot, you know exactly what's happening. In this case, you know, like the end, I know exactly that layout number 2 is being used, follow widget, Twitter widget, all those things are being used. But that's not how we are developing nowadays. You know, we're still doing a lot of DOM manipulations. Why is that? Again, because of the DOM. We can't just throw things at DOM like as if it's free. And as a matter of fact, DOM is stateful. We have to maintain the state for it. And changing DOM is really hard. It has a really bad API. Everyone knows that. And every time we do a transition, every time we do anything on the UI, we have to go to the DOM and say, hey, sorry, please change, please, you know, like remove those elements. And it's so bad that, you know, you just want to burn it, right? But realistically, you can't do that. Sorry, bro. You still need the DOM to build the UI, right? Like, in the end of the day, that's where the user will see the content. And a lot of smart people actually have been tackling this problem. The most famous one is probably jQuery, right? Like we talk about how inconsistent the DOM APIs are between different browsers. And jQuery really helps with that. And some of the APIs even better to use than the native API as well. Know that? And Backbone, even though it does not really tackle DOM itself, but it really helps you to structure your app so you can do things more efficiently. You can separate out your data structure from the DOM into the actual JavaScript. So it's a pretty good step. But man, this thing is still in the way, right? Like, you know, even in Backbone, how many times you have to do, you know, this $EL and then do something to the DOM element? You still have to do that until now, because React gives you this thing called a virtual DOM. So React in itself implemented a virtual DOM, which will maintain a tree of elements instead of template and the DOM tree that you manually maintain. Now you only have to maintain a tree of React elements. And because of that, you can just simply re-render the elements. After we render the elements, React will translate those elements into HTML. And it knows what the HTML look like at last state and knows what the HTML look like right now. It will compare the two and find out what we need to change. For example, really simple example, you know, like we all have written some like select menu, right? You have a list of elements, and when user click one of those elements, you clear up all the active class and add the active class onto one of the elements. Everyone wrote that before. In the menu situation, you do all those things by yourself. But in the React situation, you just tell React, oh, that element now is active, and React would find out, oh, the class name changed in each of the elements in the DOM tree and change it for you. And as a result, we say React can help you write more declarative code. So instead of telling what DOM to do, you just describe what you want. And the rest of it, React will do it for you. We were joking about it with, I was joking about it with my coworker Alex about what is imperative, what is declarative. And we came up with just really oversimplified and dumb joke. So today you're all eating food, right? And hire someone. And we hire guy A, and I have to tell him that, hey, go to the Safeway at 12th and Market Street, go to the food there, pick 3 cases of beer from the beer aisle, and pay the money with your Amex card, and drive back to 575 Market Street. That's imperative. You're telling him exactly what to do, right? And think about now, you hire guy B because guys suck. So you tell guy B that, hey, look, I have 50 smart, backbone engineers coming up here, and I want to serve them some food and some beer. Can you help me with that? And then guy B just go do it for you, and you don't even have to tell him where to go and how much to pay, which card to do. He just do all those things for you. Awesome. And to an extent, that's the oversimplified comparison of how you do things in React and how you do things with Backbone and on any other view layers before React, actually. Right. And as a result, we see clean worry about the transition now. You only care about giving the to worry about changing between different states. Because, well, as a consequence of that, it's easier to maintain the code. You have better performance because you have less pit holes in your code. And it's also harder to make mistakes on memory management because React does it for you if you use the React element tree. And because React has a virtual DOM, you don't need the real DOM. And the virtual DOM runs in pure JavaScript, and you can test it without Selenium, without the heavy Phantom.js, anything like that. You can just run it with Node. It also enables you to do server-side rendering easier. That's a part for finding the DOM. Well, React removes it for you, so you don't really have to worry about it anymore. That's removing my pain point. We also talk about hard to reuse views with underscore template. I know other people may have other solutions with containers, Marion, those kind of things, but it was a huge issue for us. Look at this code. This code is really simple. If you look at the template right there, it is trying to display what we call a user card, which is information about the user. And the user card, we want to do a follow button. We have a follow system in our application, and we don't want to write follow buttons every time we need one. What if we change the name of it? What do we want to change the interaction with it? So we want to use one single follow button. However, to use that one single follow button, we have to put the container with the follow button and then insert it into the container. That's if I didn't do the math well, I think that's 12 lines of code. And that's more than you just write a follow button in that code. And as a matter of fact, our developers do that. Sorry, guys. We will repeat the follow button because it's so hard to reuse one. And I find a number of things in our system. And when I want to do the internationalization, it becomes a problem because I have to change so many places to simply change that follow string into a variable instead of a string. Now, React come with this concept called JSX. You don't have to use it. You still benefit from the React element tree. But if you adopt JSX, the code will be simpler to read. And it also makes your code more forward compatible. They may change some spec on how React create elements or something. JSX usually get better support for that. Okay, so adopting JSX. That's all you need for reusing the follow button. Literally, I'm not lying. It's really this. So all those tags you see here, they're not templates. They're just a different way to write JavaScript. All those elements you see, the div here, that can be translated into a native JavaScript object instead of a DOM tag. So, so since it was follow button, it is a customized React component I wrote. And for the user to want to use that, we just simply require and then insert it there, give it the props that it needs to render, and be there. Sure. And this is really, really helpful for us, organization-wise. We were able to create this set of UI components.
I have a question.
Yes.
On this slide. So, like if you use, I do React as a server-side rendering. I work React on server-side, rendering on server-side.
Server-side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I render the Node.js installing and then
Okay, yeah.
So I was just curious, like on one hand, if you use for the follow button, like you get all the benefits of the virtual DOM and stuff like that, like when it is rendering. Whereas other parts are like still there are like some backbone components, right? Are you at any point mixing the React components with the backbone view?
Into that in later of my presentation. So we were able to create this set of components, which is called UI components. Those are the those are some examples that we it cares about everything that we do. We have users, so we have UI avatar that shows the avatar. We have icons to show our icon font. Well, we use SVG, so different. User card to show the user card, and it really helps us reusing all the views. And when the user wants to create a new element or new view, they can simply drop it in and immediately get the result instead of, again, doing that 12 line of inserting into the template. With that, we get better encapsulation. Everyone's thinking constantly about how my views other people can, of course, to have better reusability. And we actually enabled more people to write our code because the front engineers can focus on maintaining the set of UI component, and other people can just use it. And the UI component is really solid, while the other ones are, not as. So overall, as organization, will be more efficient because of this technology. Well, I hope at least you're interested in React at this point. We're talking a lot about the benefits. I think just as this guest was asking, it is questionable on how can you actually use React in the production environment when you actually already have application. We're in the same boat. We at Place, our backbone app was decided to switch, so we have a heavy one. And just as any other startup, we're not going to take 3 months off and rewrite everything. That's just not going to happen. We're going to die at that point, right? So we can take that mentally migrate to React, and I like to share with you how we did that. Keep in mind, React is really easy to learn. The hardest part, which is the DOM, right? Like it's not there anymore, and everything else kind of comes naturally, and you just learn it. And if you ask our backend engineers, they can learn React like easy. And React itself is just the view. Really, it's just the view. This was our application. We have the backbone model, backbone collection, backbone view, backbone router, everything backbone. And React is just the view, which means that it really only concerns about that part, which is backbone view. And so because of that, you think that, okay, then that means that if I want to migrate to React, it means that I have to replace my backbone views with the React views. That's half true. It's more like they're both in your stack, because backbone views and React views can coexist. They can contain each other, and they can be used at the same time in the same page. And as just a view, React views can be used with backbone models and backbone collections. So you don't have to, you really don't have to rewrite your models or collection, any of those. You just have to care about the view. And that's what I did, right? I'll give you a really simple example here to show how that can be done. first I will show you the render result. The code you just saw, and I'm just going to show you, is that's the end result of it. That's what's going to render. And this is a very, very typical Backbone application here. You have the models because we don't have, like, there's nothing special in this example, so it's just simply extended models and collections. You have two views. The user's view right here, it's a collection of user view, and user's view is going to listen to the user's instance, while the user view is going to listen to the user instance and render a simple line of code right here, as you see, for the users. Down here, you can see that when you add one element, you initialize the user views and then manually append that view onto the DOM. This is where the application initializes itself and put itself into the DOM. Here's where I added all the data. It's a typical JSON file for the user's collection. All right, that's Backbone, and you guys already saw the result. Now, I wrote a React user view. So the first view you see there is a React version of the same user view you just saw in Backbone. It does similar things. First off, I used the helper here, create Backbone class, which comes with React.backbone. It's a mixed thing, so you can it will create this function for you, so you can easily connect your views to Backbone. And you can see that in my function, there's no listening to those models, change those kind of things. That's because this mixing helped me with that. In the render function, though, you can see I have this template-like language. Well, that's not going to work actually, but don't worry about it. So you have style, you have the name, and you have the description bio there. So that's the React view. It's pure React. There's nothing about Backbone there besides the models which is connecting to. And in order to use that, I'm not going to change that view itself, because in the future you still want to use that when you don't have the Backbone, right? So I'm not going to change the React view to fit Backbone. Instead, I'm going to create a container to contain that React view, and this container is going to be a Backbone view. What it does is really simple. It has this render function, which simply tells React to render a user view with the model into its own element here. Okay, that's all it does. And well, as a responsible developer, I also write that in remove so I don't leak memory. In the remove, I tell React to unmount that component, the user component, from the element of the container itself. All right, so that's all you need. Going back to the application here. And again, this is where we're using that view, right? Now I'm just going to switch from this user view to the I put it down, sorry. Save the file. Well, I changed the color in two different views to show you that it's different views. So you get exactly the same result, but now your view here, each one of the elements is actually writing in React instead of Backbone. And it actually can support a lot of things that you're familiar with. For example, we're all familiar with the change event that will change the render result. So here, since I wrote that code, I can access it directly. I'm just going to change the username of the first guy, which is myself, to something else. Okay. Right. What happened? The view also changes. And that view, again, is React view. It connects to models, and you can use the models exactly how you use it, no problem. I hope with that example and the fact that Place has been using both React and Backbone for 6 months, I hope that.
Are you still using the Backbone servers to rerun your React views, or?
Yes. I hope that simple example and the fact that we have been using this structure for a long time really give you confidence that it really is simple. And this stage, our application look less like that, more like this. Because of the ratio, we started doing the opposite way. We started writing the main views of ours in React and use Backbone views in the React views. I'm not going to show you an example because of time, but it's equally simple. The only difference or the only problem there is that by doing so, you don't take advantage of the virtual DOM. You still have to manually do that in the Backbone view itself.
How about you, like, if you want to re-render the React component, you have to change the state, right? I mean, like a set state. If you want to re-render the React component, so how are you doing from Backbone? How are you re-rendering the React component from Backbone?
Well, if I understood your question correctly, so for us, I think we carefully chose not to do that, actually. We want the React view itself can and know when to re-render itself, so that the Backbone view is just a simple container for the thing inside. And if you really have to, there are functions that you can expose from the React component to the outside world, and this can help you with that. Another way to do that is each React component has a props, which is the thing that you pass in, and the component has components. Well, when the props get updated, it has a callback function. You can also utilize that to get messages from the outside world.
The change in the model causes a set state, which causes the.
Yeah, so basically, model is the one when the change states.
Yeah,
like flux, like
when the model changes,
right?
it causes the.
Right. And really, you can start using React today. For the views, at least, okay? And now we have been using the views for a long time. We're hitting some harder problems. Views are simple, and React is good at it. But in a bigger image, React is changing a lot of things in the front end world, and that requires bigger changes to our stack. We thought a lot about those changes, and today we're just going to share some thoughts with you, so that before you make the decision of where to go, you can have those things in mind. First off, it's really a new way of thinking. We constantly think about the state of the view instead of DOM manipulation. At the beginning, I'm telling you, everyone is still doing a lot of manual DOM manipulation. React does not stop you from doing that. Like, you can still get the DOM node if you need to. But to benefit from using React, you shouldn't do that. And it's a very new word for us, and we had a long time that we're still learning this. So keep in mind, think about state and props all the time instead of the DOM. Forget about the DOM. In our system, we have this concept of controller, which holds the models and the views and connect them too. And as I was saying, it's a customized solution that utilizes the Backbone router. But in this new thing, where does the controller go? The controller can still hold React view, that's no problem. However, the more we use React, the more we want to take advantage of it. And we really want to move the concept of root view, which is the root of all the views, to take advantage of the native support for props and state. And we recommend you to do that too. With React, the community really started adopting a new toolchain. We just talked about some toolchain, and as a matter of fact, that's what we have been using. 3 years ago, we started the application, and we were using what we thought, well, at the time, was most popular. So you develop browser-targeted code and use Bower as your package management. use require.js for your dependency management, and use R.js as the packaging tool. So that's what the old stack looked like, and that's what we are and we're on. But the new one with React community is really, really, really different. You write code in like a node style. You use common.js modules, use npm for your package management, and use webpack for packing your dependency together. It is very different style, and well, I gave it a try in some smaller projects, and of course, it has a lot of benefits that you can get from using a newer system, using Webpack for managing dependencies. They are all great. However, it also means that if us right now stuck in an old system, we can't benefit from a lot of community contributions. A lot of React libraries out there right now, they do not support Bower. They do not support require.js. You have to use a common.js like package managed require system to be able to take advantage of them. You have to use npm to install them. Of course, unless you fork them yourself. And I had to do a lot of that, which was a pain. So how to migrate into a new tool chain, is it worth it or not, is something that you should be thinking about. The more you use React, the more you want to use it. And React actually can be used in a lot of places. There's implementation of using React for Canvas. As we're talking about, it can be used for server-side rendering. It's said to be very easy. We have not done that ourselves here, but that's one of the reasons why we wanted to use React first place. It's easier compared to any other frameworks. And of course, during the React conference, there is this concept of React Native, which takes out the virtual DOM. Now we are already rendering something not direct to the view, right? Like we have a virtual thing there, which is virtual DOM. Why can't we replace the virtual DOM with virtual something else? In this case, virtual native iOS view, virtual native Android view. So that's what React Native is about. It's actually really exciting. If you're interested, you can find me and we can talk more about that. Last one, and the biggest one, is your architecture. Facebook introduced this thing called Flux with React, and it is said to be replacing MVC. This is a quote from their website that says, Flux is an architecture that enforces a unidirectional data flow. And in their introduction, this is how MVC looks like. It's kind of true if you are not careful with things. I think it can happen. You have a lot of models, you have a lot of views, and you have a lot of unclear dependencies between them. Models can trigger view to do things, which cascading to view make model do things, and the model makes view to do more things. So it's really hard to trace what caused a change in your system. And Flux promised this simple diagram which utilizes the concept of store and action dispatcher to enforce a simple one-direction data flow so that this kind of strange situation does not happen. It is cool, and I think the bottleneck of this is probably the store. The stores can have dependencies between themselves, which can create similar situations. But I think the promise is really good. And we really evaluated it, and during the React conference, I talked to a ton of people who have migrated from Backbone to React on the Vue side. I asked their opinion about Flux. And I think the conclusion is actually Backbone-based Flux is really hard. The reason being, a couple of key points here for Flux that using a vanilla Backbone model collection hard to handle is all stores need to finish processing before a view gets notified. That means that using our setup, how do you set up dependencies between different views, different models? How does that not create a problem? I don't know. When the store are processing information, no new actions can be put in. So here, the diagram. So if the view put in one action to dispatcher, the store will process and then notify the view. And during this notifications phase, view cannot put action into dispatcher. Okay, that's what they're trying to do to prevent this cascading effect that the view tricks model, model tricks view, view tricks model again, model tricks more view. Like, they're trying to prevent that from happening. Maybe we can do that with Backbone models too in set and in event handler, but it's not natively supported. So think about it. You can, the view can call set, and set can call some callback function. That callback function can be on the view and call more set on other models. So that is not natively supported in the Backbone models, Backbone collections, and you have to implement something yourself. And lastly, which is the most important thing, is in this structure, they physically separated the store and the view. The views cannot directly call anything on store. Right now, we can model.set to set the variable, to set the values on the model, right? But in this structure, you can't do that. You have to put in this action, which is a simple string, into dispatcher, which is event system, and dispatcher will inform the store that, oh, the view wants to change you, and the store decides what to do. So the view cannot, and the store can reject that. Store can say, I'm processing something else, and I can't handle this right now, so you can do that. And the view cannot force store to do anything because it does not have that path to go there. It cannot see even those functions. So because of that, views are physically isolated from the models, and that helps preventing the cascading again problem. Our suggestion for this is, once again, we're still not on Flux. We're still on the traditional MVC structure, and it works fine. Like, really, it works fine. The views are just like the Backbone views that you're used to. We still use the event systems that have the changed model to tell the view that you need to re-render. We do set some standards for when you can call set and who should change the model. We have some conventions there, but there's no enforcement, unlike Flux. Our suggestion would be evaluate your specific situation first. Facebook is a huge company. It has a lot of applications, and the application is really complicated. Chat application is super complicated, and your application may not be, right? And I really believe that when it comes down to architecture, you probably should think about re-architecturing instead of shoehorning your Backbone models or collections into this Flux structure. Right? Okay, that's all we want to share. And if you want to start using React today, this is the place you can go and join. So, right. And thank you all.
All right, thanks, Chengyin, once more. This has been a great talk. Yeah. All right, so just before we wrap up, I want to thank our first sponsor, for doing drinks, and you guys, the community, because